I am currently Research Director of the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance. I want to make a relatively short video instructing those interested in assisting the NHLA assess legislation for the 2015 session. We call this process bill review. We have about 800 bills to determine if they are pro or anti-liberty. First, let me say that the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance is a nonpartisan coalition. We work to increase individual freedom in New Hampshire. Besides monitoring the bills in the legislative session, we also encourage private charity, civil society, and citizen involvement. So there's a lot of private charity that our Civic Action Director does, as well as the other members of the board. Our political director, who actually lobbies for or against bills. I am a research director. I'm tasked with creating the gold standard, which is produced after the bill review process identifies the bills, and we have voting recommendations for the House representatives to vote either for or against a bill. I'll show you an example of our gold standard. This is the most recent one. Here we were recommending that a rule change be defeated. There was a proposed rule change that would limit transparency by doubling the number of seconds that are required for a successful roll call motion. I'd like to think that we were influential in the outcome of that. That did not pass. Also, a rule change to allow weapons back into the State House was successful, and that is in accordance with our voting recommendations for January 7th. Now, after the gold standard has been completed every week, we'll tally the roll call votes and create a Liberty rating that scores each legislator on their pro and anti-liberty votes and gives them a letter grade. That way we know which representatives we should endorse, which we should perhaps target for being replaced by a more pro-liberty candidate. This is the 2014 Liberty ranking. Pro-liberty votes protect individual freedom of choice and personal responsibility, recognize the superiority of freedom over coercion, respect the citizen's right of self-ownership, promote governance that is transparent, accountable, and adheres to the Constitution, and recognize the value of voluntary economic decisions. Anti-liberty votes replace self-governance with interventionist regulation, assume roles made by agencies backed by force are superior to voluntary choices backed by personal accountability, and assume a better economy can be managed by a central authority that compels people and businesses to pay for policies they may not willingly support. Some of the grades are F through A, as well as constitutional threat. There were 16 representatives that were considered constitutional threats. The Liberty rating also is announced at the same time as our Legislator of the Year. Previously it was Carol McGuire, and Activist of the Year are announced, Michelle Lavelle. So congratulations to them. So that's who we are and what we're hoping to accomplish here with the bill review. In order to be a bill reviewer, you will need to be a member of the NHLA, which is free for basic membership. If you click over here, if you're brand new to the site, you can join. as I said, for free. A 2-year membership is only $20, or a lifetime membership for $100. After you join, send a message to me at research@nhliberty.org or membership@nhliberty.org. Here's the membership director's email. We'll need to add you to bill reviewer status. So complete the training, and then we can update your status as a bill reviewer so that you can begin reviewing bills. Once that status is changed, you'll be able to see this menu over here. To get started, why don't we just jump right into unreviewed bills. Now, we're early in the 2015 session, so only 50 bills have been released, and we have currently reviewed all but one of them. In a few days, we'll have hundreds more to review. You can divide by committee if you're only interested in education. You can pick a bill on that topic. For the purpose of this video, I want to try to get through the basics of this as quickly as possible so that you can get up and running, or if you just need a refresher. So we'll look at one that has already been reviewed, and one that's relatively simple. I think New Hampshire has the advantage of having easily comprehensible bills. It's not like the U.S. House, where you have gigantic omnibus bills. And I think that's due to the fact that it's an amateur legislature, or a citizen legislature, not professionals. We can sort by best score first or worst score first. Here's the one I want to use. Relative to advertising of liquor or beverages, HB 122. So when we click on that, it takes us to this read-only version of the bill. It will show who's the last person to review the bill. We can always re-review a bill. This is a little bit different if you're starting from scratch and clicking over here on unreviewed bills. We're just going to look at the already reviewed bills, like I said, for simplicity. The first step you want to do is to just take a look at the bill. You can click here for a link to the General Court's website. It's the name of the New Hampshire House. But before I get into that, I'll show you where you can conveniently read the bill from the same website. I'll just briefly go through how to read some of the nomenclature of the bill. HB, House Bill, it's 2015 session. Here's the sponsor of the bill, Representative Keith Murphy. This is going to go to the Commerce Committee. This analysis is pretty brief, but oftentimes will have more description than just simply an act relative to advertising of liquor and beverages, which could be pro or anti-liberty. This gives you a better clue as to what this is intending to do. Now, when you read something in bold italics, that's something that's been added to the law in the proposed bill. Strike through, that's something that's being deleted. If it's all new, it's in regular type. So you have the typical preamble here. This is the first section, advertising restrictions. Reference to minors, amend RSA 179:31, 7A, to read as follows. Any reference to minors, pictorial or otherwise, unless the Commission determines that such reference is not intended to appeal to minors. So that alone right there, taken out of context, doesn't tell us too much. So we'll have to go and read the full statute. Let's see here. 7A. Okay. So this whole section here is on advertising restrictions. Now 7 is saying it may not contain advertising of anything that has a reference to minors, and then something about false and misleading, and any subject matter that is or illustrations inducing persons under legal drinking age to drink, and then it goes on about coupons. So if we go back here, we see that it's just taking any reference to minors, pictorial or otherwise, and adding something that gives the Liquor Commission more discretion. So they can decide that if this advertising is not intended to appeal to minors, then they don't have to ban the product. I can give you a little brief background on this. This is primarily about Founder's Breakfast Stout. There's a beer product that is made with oatmeal and has a picture of a baby eating oatmeal, and just because it has a baby, the Liquor Commission felt that to comply with the law they would have to ban it, and so it's actually illegal in New Hampshire to sell a bottle of this beer. If this were to pass, I'm sure the intent here of Representative Murphy is to give the Liquor Commission discretion to approve that. Now, you wouldn't know all that without doing some research, Googling it. Perhaps you would know the sponsor of the bill. That might tell you something. It's a lot of background information. For the purpose of the review, you just want to outline what it does, and you can leave all of that background information in a note section on the review. So if you decided to review it, you'd click here, review this bill. You're going to select a topic or topics, regulations and licensure, small business. Sounds pretty good. You don't have to limit yourself. Now the summary here, relative to advertising of liquor or beverages, that's just what's pulled from the website. But the bill reviewer here added a more helpful description, so it allows depiction of minors with commission approval. Liberty friendly, you have a few options here. Unsure, anti, neutral, or pro-liberty. So even if it's just a little bit pro-liberty, you can indicate that, but it might be a better idea to keep an open mind about this until you fully analyze the bill, because once you think more about it, maybe it's not so pro-liberty, maybe it's actually maybe a little more on the neutral side, or anti-liberty, who knows. Keep an open mind. Impacts. This is important but very subjective. Low impacts. What actually would this change if it were to pass? How many people would be affected by this change? This would allow Founders Brewery to sell a little bit more beer. It would give freedom of choice to consumers. They don't need to be told what beer they can't buy just because the Liquor Commission thinks that your morals will be corrupted by having a baby on the bottle of beer you're drinking. Still, that's a low impact overall. Civil rights. Does this bill protect the rights of people or supplant them with new government-granted privileges? It either protects, eliminates, or it doesn't apply. The bill reviewer here said it doesn't apply. Personal responsibility. Does the bill increase the personal responsibility of individuals, or does it promote protectionism or victimhood? I think it increases personal responsibility, as I just said. People should be able to decide what they're drinking and not worry about being preached to. Promotes protectionism or victimhood would be the other option here. The next one is right to property. Does this bill affect personal property? Either it protects it or it takes or controls someone else's property. So I think NA is appropriate here. Clarity. Is this legislation written clearly? So this is a pretty simple bill, but some of them can be a bit confusing. This isn't asking if it's confusing to you necessarily. In the legalese, is it consistent and clear with the rest of the RSAs? And by the way, RSA means revised statutes, annotated in New Hampshire. That's just the name for the law, the statutory law. So something could be duplicitous and or vague. Maybe people are using some strange language. They've inserted some words that might have some other effect than might immediately be apparent, or it might have loopholes and be vague and lead to unintended consequences. But this is honest and clear. Accountability. Does this bill absolve officials and agencies of civic responsibility or hold them liable for abuses? It doesn't really apply. Constitutionality. Does this bill adhere to the letter of the law established by the New Hampshire Constitution? There's a helpful link here. When you're referencing the Constitution, we'll probably be focused on the part first, the Bill of Rights. There's also part second that goes into the organization of the House and Senate and so forth. You're going to want to reference one of these, some part of the Constitution, if you do select constitutionally legal or unconstitutional. If you don't have a reference, just leave it as NA. Enforceability. Is this easily enforceable or arduously burdensome or even unenforceable? I think this one's easily enforceable. Right. Regulations and bureaucracy. Does this bill decrease or increase bureaucratic and regulatory infrastructure? This doesn't really apply. This is giving discretion to an already existing bureaucratic agency. If it was creating a new agency to take up these matters and hand down a ruling on them, that would be excessively burdensome. So we wouldn't, probably wouldn't have favored that. What about the fiscal impact? We want to be concerned here with the fiscal impact on private citizens. Is it positive or negative or none? So if it reduces taxes or costs, then that would have a positive impact. As for negative impacts, you could choose between low and considerable. Taxation, does this legislation charge everyone for its costs or only those who will use it? So if a tax for everyone is definitely more burdensome than a user fee. User fee is generally considered to be more libertarian. This doesn't apply. Now, up here, the Constitution was referenced, and a note was made by the reviewer that this increases respect for constitutionally protected rights under Part 1, Article 2, specifically acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and in a word of seeking and obtaining happiness. I do believe that you could make reference to the federal Constitution as well and say that there's a free speech issue. In fact, I think that was argued when this bill was introduced previously. Down here you want to give talking points that would be argued on this bill. So it's pro-liberty bill. These are pro-liberty talking points that might help to sell this bill. It gives more responsibility and options to the consumer rather, to determine which products they want to buy. Market competition options are increased, reduces business regulations, growth in alcohol beverage sector. Okay. Anti-liberty talking points would be points made against it. So you probably would have people come out and talk about the corruption of minors. If this law is changed, there's just going to be havoc unleashed and babies will be stumbling down the street drunk. So that may sound like hyperbole, but that's not far from the truth. Anticipate all of the anti-liberty talking points so that we can be prepared when this bill is introduced into committee to rebut them or preempt them. Now we just have a bullet point if it's a don't touch issue, or this is won't touch. Currently that's only the death penalty and abortion related issues, so we don't have to worry about that. The report card candidate box, you would check that if you want that to appear on that annual scorecard that I showed at the beginning. If it's somehow exemplary of a pro-business or pro-social liberty bill, anyone can flag a bill as interesting. Perhaps you want to indicate that there's questions here that need to be answered. You want to get someone else's eyes on that. And the note section here for the reviewer to use. Now, a lot of that background that I mentioned before could possibly go in this field here. This is just very conversational. You can just put your thought process in this box, and there's no limit on space. You can put down here why you made the decisions you did, if you were hesitant to select one thing or the other. Just write that down here, and we can take a look at it later. Also, it's possible to re-review a bill, and if you do so, make a note that you've done that. It looks like that has already happened. Some changes were made to this review. I do believe I skipped past one more bullet point. This study committee option. A bill can just create a study committee instead of actually effecting a change in the law. It would just establish a committee where some representatives would assemble and discuss the issue. It wouldn't change anything, and we can pretty much disregard those bills. So you just, if that was the case, you would just click that and then scroll down to the bottom and submit without filling in all the rest of this. I think that covers most of it. And just before I click submit, you want to be sure to click quit in the case that you decided you don't feel qualified to take on this bill, or if you have some time constraints that you won't be able to finish this. If you fail to click this button and you don't intend to go back to it, that locks this bill out from anyone else using it. So you want to be sure to click that if you're not going to return to this. All right, submit review. Now, we'll be able to find the score of the bill by looking at a list of reviewed bills. So you were probably working in the list of unreviewed bills, and now it's been moved to the list of reviewed bills. Okay, and it has a score. Now we're back at the read-only version, but it has the score here of 3. So bills can be scored anywhere from like positive 37, I believe, to negative 37. This is very useful for us so that we can look at upcoming public hearings. We can say, what are the bills that have plus or minus liberty rating of 3 that are coming up for a committee vote in the next 7 days? And we can show up and support or oppose those bills. The same thing for the floor votes. They shouldn't be scheduled yet. We're not that far along. So that's the bill review process. If you have questions, you can email me at research@nhliberty.org. I don't see my email listed here. Again, that's research@nhliberty. It's worth going into some of the resources that you can draw on in the next just a few minutes. I do want to keep this short. So we've covered the Constitution. If we go to the home page, we'll have a link for the home page, the General Court main site. If we want to look up an RSA, click here. There's a search feature here. You can type in keywords, or you can, I usually just will scroll through this. It's helpful to just scroll through it. It's clumsy, but it works. There's also a site called gencourt.org, which was made by a former research director, which has the advantage of hyperlinking referenced RSAs rather. This is a bad example, but you'll have a hyperlink to other sections of the law, which will save you a lot of time. Some other links that might be of interest would be the House calendars and journals. This goes to the General Court page that shows you the calendars. I'll go to the 2014 session in February to show you where you might go to read about upcoming bills in the committee. This is important for bill reviewers because if we have hundreds of bills that need to be reviewed, we want to review the bills that are going to be introduced into committee on Tuesday. We want to make sure that those are finished first. All right, I think that covers the basics. There's a lot more to learn. It can be overwhelming at first, but a little perseverance will have you become an expert in no time. I know that was the case for me. I was thrust into this and became fascinated by the process the more I've learned. Another quick feature, email alerts here. You can be alerted about a bill in a particular committee that's pro or anti-liberty. So sign up for that if you'd like to be alerted by email. We'll have some more online resources available, as well as in-person meetings. If you have questions, we can do some bill review work sessions. But hopefully this introduction will get you started. It actually went a little bit longer than I had hoped, but I hope that was helpful. Again, contact me at research@nhliberty.org with any questions, and we'll get you set up as a